I think we're going to learn a lot about the nature of Cassie's relationship.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Cassie told the jury that the freak-offs made her feel disgusting and humiliated and worthless.
Say these lasted between 1 and 4 days, and it would take her an equal amount of time to get her body recovered, to rehydrate.
Among other things, the singer's expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his.
Day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Welcome back to StarHush, where the silence breaks and the truth shakes the room. Diddy was once seen as hip-hop royalty, the blueprint, the boss. But that title started slipping fast the moment Cassie Ventura walked into court and grabbed the mic, not for a performance, but for the truth. What she shared left jaws dropped in the courtroom in complete shock. Veteran reporters, folks who've seen it all, were frozen in disbelief as Cassie laid out her testimony piece by piece. The man behind the music, the fame, and the brand, he reportedly sat there stunned, barely able to keep it together as Cassie pulled back the curtain on everything she claims went down during their relationship. This wasn't just a spill, it was a full-on unraveling of Diddy's carefully built image. And the world is watching it fall.
She walked in there, Rachel. She had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having with. And again, just to reiterate, what is essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer's expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
Diddy didn't just play the game, he ran it. For decades, Sean Combs moved through the music industry like it was his personal playground. Because in many ways, it was. He turned Bad Boy Records into an empire, launched careers, made icons, and stamped his name on everything from vodka to designer suits to TV networks. He wasn't just a rapper. He was the mogul blueprint, the one everyone else studied. He made hip-hop corporate, flashy, global. On the outside, Diddy was a master of reinvention, a business genius, a power player, a clean-cut success story. But according to what's now spilling out in court, that polished image might have been nothing more than smoke and mirrors, because behind the tailored suits and smooth press interviews, Cassie Ventura was allegedly living a nightmare. While the public was clapping for the hits and magazine covers, while folks were sipping on his branded vodka and posting his inspirational quotes, Cassie, his ex-girlfriend, was reportedly dealing with a version of Diddy the world never saw. And that contrast, it hit hard in the courtroom. Here was a man known for walking red carpets in flawless tuxes, delivering speeches about success and hustle, and now he was sitting silently as testimony pulled back the curtain on a very different reality. Court reporters clocked his arrival like clockwork. Day 2, he walked in with full mogul energy, designer drip, legal team flanking him, giving head nods, even smiling like he had it all under control. But that confidence, it didn't survive the first 30 minutes. Witnesses said you could see the shift happen. As Cassie started to share her story, Diddy's whole vibe changed. That trademark swagger vanished. The cool, collected posture started to crumble. His eyes dropped, his shoulders sank. That billionaire aura faded fast once the real details hit the air. As Cassie began to recount specific moments from their time together, the courtroom shifted. Diddy's legal team leapt up with objection after objection, scrambling to cut her off mid-sentence. It felt less like a defense strategy and more like panic, like they were racing against her every word. And the irony couldn't be louder. This was the same man who built a billion-dollar empire, controlled entire careers, and sealed multi-million-dollar deals with ease. Yet in that moment, He couldn't even control his own body language in front of a jury. Courtroom witnesses said Diddy was shaken. As Cassie calmly continued, all eyes locked onto him. They weren't even watching her, they were watching him unravel. His face reportedly went pale like a light switch had been flipped. He started tugging at his tie, then messing with his cufflinks, and eventually just twisting his hands in his lap over and over, fidgeting, restless, out of control. Then came the frantic scribbles. Diddy was spotted writing note after note, sliding them over to his attorneys with urgency. At one point, one of his lawyers raised a hand like, "Slow down," because the messages were coming so fast it became a distraction of its own. One courtroom reporter said it looked like a man realizing in real time that he was no longer in charge of the narrative, and maybe never was. Another said he appeared physically sick while Cassie spoke, turning his face down, avoiding her gaze. One observer said they saw him close his eyes multiple times, like he couldn't bear to hear what was being said, or maybe knew exactly what was coming next. Because this was just a warm-up. As the afternoon pushed forward and Cassie's testimony deepened, the energy in that courtroom changed completely. The bombshell she was about to drop wouldn't just shake Diddy's confidence, it had the power to shake the entire music industry. The man who always directed the story was finally facing a version he couldn't rewrite.
At some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed? This is when Cassie got and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to this, in addition to the that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things, him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and said, and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called saying that they involved hiring an escort, and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony. Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there.
When Cassie Ventura stepped onto the stand, the air in that courtroom shifted instantly. You could have heard a pin drop, every breath held, every eye locked forward. People knew this moment was coming, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to unfold, not even Diddy's own legal team. After years of silence, after years of whispers and headlines and rumors, Cassie finally had the floor, and she used it, not with fireworks, but with calm, surgical precision. She started with the beginning, just 19 years old, a rising model with dreams of music. And Diddy, a powerhouse mogul already worth millions, already commanding rooms, already surrounded by a team, a brand, and a legacy. The power gap was undeniable, and Cassie testified that Diddy knew it and leaned all the way into it. Her story came together slowly, deliberately, like one of those thrillers where you sense something coming, but can't stop watching. First, it was the subtle control. Cassie described how he allegedly insisted on knowing where she was at all times, how he would unexpectedly appear if she went out. It wasn't just about trust, it was about power. Next, she detailed how her career was used as a leash. She claimed he would threaten to shelve her music, stall projects, and sabotage her collabs with other artists whenever he felt insecure or challenged. And then came the turn. Cassie claimed that Diddy allegedly installed tracking software on her phone. She testified that he somehow knew where she was, even when she hadn't told anyone. Sometimes he'd call within minutes of her arriving somewhere, asking pointed questions. According to her, it was part of a larger pattern, isolating her, cutting her off from friends one by one, until he was the only person left in her world. The courtroom grew restless. Tension thickened. The judge had to call for order 3 separate times. Meanwhile, Diddy was visibly unraveling. He shook his head, whispered to his attorneys, and made faces so animated that jurors couldn't help but notice. Each time the judge warned him, he'd take a deep breath, only to react again minutes later. It was like watching someone who'd never been told no slowly realize they couldn't control the moment. Then came the shift, the one no one saw coming. Cassie calmly reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and handed it to her attorney. Within seconds, the courtroom projector lit up. Text messages, emails, screenshots, messages where Diddy allegedly apologized for violent outbursts. Messages where he supposedly threatened her career if she ever spoke out. Messages that flat out contradicted public statements made by his legal and PR teams, and judging by Diddy's reaction, he had no idea she kept them. He looked stunned, eyes wide, jaw tense. The same man who built his brand on staying 10 steps ahead suddenly looked like he didn't know what was happening. And those messages? That was just the start. Because what came next shattered the room. Cassie began to testify about the she says she endured. She described being shoved into walls during arguments. One time, she claimed, he pushed her down a staircase at a Miami rental home. Then came the most devastating claims of all. Cassie said there were multiple times Diddy allegedly choked her until she went limp, only stopping once she couldn't move. You could feel the shift in the room. One juror, an older woman, was seen wiping her eyes. A male juror stared straight down at the table, unable to look at Diddy. Even the courtroom reporters, folks who've sat through everything, said they weren't ready for the weight of what Cassie shared. It was intense, it was chilling, and it was just the buildup. Because what Cassie revealed next, the hotel incident, was what would change this case forever.
Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm gonna be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's gonna be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
I thought I wasn't going to make it out that night, Cassie said, her voice low, barely above a whisper. And in that courtroom, you could have heard the sound of breath being held. She was describing something that no one, not the press, not the blogs, not even the closest industry insiders, had ever heard about before. The Four Seasons Hotel incident had been buried for years, and Cassie explained why. Fear. She said she kept it hidden out of fear for her future, fear for her physical safety, and fear that no one would believe her word over a global icon like Diddy. But on that witness stand, she was done holding back. According to her testimony, it all started like any typical industry after-party: music, champagne, business talk. But everything changed the moment Diddy spotted her in conversation with another music executive. She described the moment his expression flipped, the smile gone, the eyes cold. She said he grabbed her arm so tightly it left bruises, and while he kept his smile up for everyone around them, Cassie testified that he was whispering sharp threats in her ear. It looked fine on the surface, she said. But inside that moment, everything shifted. Then came the part that truly stunned the room. Cassie told the court that Diddy physically pulled her through the hotel lobby, toward the elevators, while she tried to break free, crying, panicked, and making enough of a scene that hotel security noticed. One security guard approached, but according to Cassie, the moment he recognized Diddy, he simply asked if everything was okay, received a quick yes from Combs, and walked away. He didn't even ask if I was okay, she told the court. Then, without warning, her attorney introduced a set of images, photos Cassie said she took the next morning. They showed her with marks on her arm, redness around her neck, and a swollen lip. These weren't glamorous. They weren't posed. They were raw, bathroom mirror selfies taken with shaky hands, and that made them hit even harder. She explained she took them because she knew deep down that people wouldn't believe her without proof. Diddy's legal team jumped up fast, trying everything they could to block the photos from being shown to the jury. They argued the images weren't properly authenticated, that they were out of context, that they should have been filed earlier. But the judge shut it down, denying every objection. The photos went up on the big screen, and the jury's reaction spoke volumes. One juror covered her mouth with her hand. 2 others turned away. Another juror toward the back was writing so fast, her pen nearly slipped from her grip. It was a bombshell, one that no one, not even Diddy's attorneys, had seen coming. That incident had never been mentioned in filings, interviews, or previous statements, and because of that, Diddy's team had no prepared defense. The look of pure panic on their faces was undeniable. Cassie continued, calm but unwavering. She testified that Diddy allegedly threw a champagne bottle at her during the argument. It missed her by inches and shattered against the wall. She described him destroying the room in a rage, knocking over a lamp, breaking a table, punching a hole in the bathroom door. Then came the detail that silenced the room all over again. She claimed he prevented her from leaving for nearly 2 full days. She said he took her phone, locked the door, and warned her not to try anything, or else. As this part of her testimony came to a close, every single person in that courtroom turned their eyes toward Diddy. And in that one quiet, frozen moment, his reaction said it all. It wasn't just a turning point in the trial. It was the moment that could change the course of his entire legacy.
The defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say. that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on. And had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself,
It was the moment no one in that courtroom will ever forget. The man known for keeping his cool through scandal, business battles, and industry chaos, Sean Diddy Combs, completely unraveled in front of a packed room. The mask that took decades to build didn't just crack, it shattered. Diddy's whole brand was built on control, calm, collected, untouchable. The mogul who always stayed 5 steps ahead, the businessman who could walk into any room and run it without raising his voice. But on this day, that illusion melted away fast. As Cassie's testimony reached its most intense points, courtroom insiders said Diddy didn't just react, he transformed. The same man who strutted in that morning surrounded by lawyers, nodding like everything was under control. By the afternoon, he looked like someone cornered, pacing in his own mind, struggling to hold it together. Court reporters, folks who've covered the wildest celebrity trials, said they'd never seen a public figure lose composure like this in real time. Witnesses inside said he seemed to shrink into his chair with every new detail Cassie shared. His posture caved, his eyes dropped. The energy around him got heavy. You could feel it from across the room. Meanwhile, his legal team was clearly trying to hold him down, literally. A source who sat behind the defense table claimed Diddy's lead attorney kept putting a firm hand on his arm during the more heated moments. At one point, one of the lawyers even slid him a note that reportedly read, "Stay calm," in bold, capital letters. But it didn't work. Because when Cassie began talking about a specific moment at his home in the Hamptons, Diddy's composure completely snapped. He slammed his hand down on the courtroom table, hard. The sound echoed across the room like a warning shot. The judge didn't hesitate. He stopped the proceedings cold. "Mr. Combs, if you cannot control yourself, I will have you removed from this courtroom." For a second, it looked like that might actually happen. The tension was that high. And even after the warning, Diddy kept reacting. He was visibly shaking his head anytime Cassie said something especially damaging. Lip readers in the room said he was mouthing, "That's not true," over and over again, right in front of the jury. Like he forgot they were there. Like he didn't realize his reactions were part of the testimony now. One courtroom observer said, "It was like watching someone who'd never been challenged finally realize he couldn't talk his way out this time." For so many years, Diddy allegedly controlled every piece of Cassie's world. Now she was telling her side, and he couldn't mute it, delete it, or spin it. He couldn't call in a publicist, couldn't wave in security, couldn't walk off the stage. All he could do was sit there and listen. And then came the final straw. Cassie testified that Diddy had allegedly made threats, not just against her, but against her family. She claimed that during their relationship, he told her that if she ever spoke out, her loved ones would face consequences too. Nobody was ready for what came next. Not the jury, not the reporters, and definitely not Diddy. Cassie's lawyer calmly told the court she had one more thing to present, something that had never been mentioned in court filings, statements, or interviews. She had audio recordings, actual recordings of Diddy's voice. According to Cassie, these were clips of him making threats. Clear, unmistakable threats. The courtroom froze. Then the first recording played. His voice came through the speakers, low but angry, and suddenly everything changed. Diddy snapped. He leapt up from his chair and shouted straight across the room, "You know that's not how it happened." His voice echoed, loud enough to startle the jury. Chaos erupted instantly. 3 of his attorneys rushed to restrain him, physically pulling him back down into his seat, but he kept speaking, trying to shout over the audio still playing in the courtroom. The judge wasted no time. "Recess now." But the damage? Already done. Everyone in that room had seen it. The jury, the press, the court staff. The man who built a brand on being in control had just lost it completely. No more polished image, no more composure, no more mask. As security led him out of the courtroom, Diddy looked like a completely different person than the one who walked in that morning. His shoulders slumped, his eyes wide. It was like all the power had been drained from him, and just when people thought they'd seen the full picture, Cassie dropped her real bombshell. She didn't just come with stories, she came with receipts, years worth of proof, saved quietly, hidden from Diddy's reach. Texts, emails, photos, evidence she'd stored in multiple places so they couldn't be found or erased. This wasn't random. This was calculated. She had been preparing for this day. Then she said something that had the whole room on edge. She also had text messages from other celebrities, people who had been there, people who had seen things, and not just B-list names either. We're talking some of Diddy's closest friends and longtime collaborators, industry insiders who'd been present at private events, house parties, and backstage moments the public never heard about until now. Diddy's reaction? Immediate. His face turned pale. One courtroom guest described him as looking physically sick. He knew what was coming, and it showed. His legal team sprang into action, objecting loudly. They called for a sidebar with the judge, arguing the messages shouldn't be allowed. They said it was hearsay. They said it wasn't properly submitted. The judge reviewed the messages behind closed doors, then came back with a decision that shifted the room once again. Objections overruled. The messages were ruled admissible. The judge called them highly relevant and authorized them to be presented in court. And then, boom, the courtroom screens lit up with the one thing nobody expected: messages from celebrities. Not tabloids, not rumors, receipts. The first one came from a major rapper, someone everyone in that room recognized, who had texted Cassie after a Grammy after party. "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can stay at my place if you need to." Then came a message from a huge female pop star who's known Diddy for over a decade. "I've known him for 15 years and I've never seen him act like that with anyone else. This isn't normal. Please call me." But the real damage came from someone inside the business, a longtime producer who's worked with Diddy for years. "I can't be around this anymore," the message read. "I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." That text hit like a gut punch. Because up until this moment, Diddy's public stance had always been the same. No witnesses, no complaints, no concerns. According to him, everything Cassie ever said was either exaggerated or taken out of context. But now, the court had undeniable proof that people did witness things. They saw the way he acted. They reached out. They tried to help. And most importantly, they believed her. Then came the twist nobody was ready for. Diddy's own texts. Messages projected on screen where he seemed to acknowledge everything Cassie had said. I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again. Another read. Whatever you need to make this right, just name it. New car, new apartment, whatever you want. And a third set, even more telling. My lawyer can draw up the paperwork tomorrow. $2 million clean break. You don't talk about anything from the past 5 years. The courtroom was frozen. And then something wild started happening. People sitting behind Diddy, members of his own circle, started slipping out, quiet, one by one. These were the same faces who walked in strong, showing support, sitting tall behind him. Now they couldn't even stay in the room. By the time that testimony ended, Diddy wasn't just under pressure. He was sitting nearly alone. Just him, his lawyers, and a whole lot of silence. That invincible image he walked in with, gone. The power walk, gone. The brand, the control, the unshakable cool, gone. And that's the moment everyone realized something bigger than a trial might be happening here. Because Cassie didn't just speak up, she brought evidence. Real, tangible proof that changed everything about how this story had been told for years. She didn't just share her truth, she turned the spotlight on an entire legacy. The empire Diddy spent decades building might be crashing down right in front of us. The question isn't just about the verdict anymore. The question now is, can his reputation ever recover from what that courtroom heard? So now I want to know, what do you think? Are we witnessing a legacy fall apart in real time, or will Diddy somehow bounce back from all of this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you made it to the end, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for all the latest breakdowns. I'll catch you in the next one, my stars. Or should I say, my hushers.